Okay, so from the two dots, Amarava, Veleinian Gittin Eino Kain. For Gittin, it's not like that. So we have had before that if you have an oines, Alma Kasava River ain't oines in Gittin. So the previous sugi we've had that if you have an oines, that you don't have to pay for her food. Veleinian Gittin Eino Kain. A lafikach guy, Rashi tells me what it's referring to. Lafikach, which you had in the previous sugya, that we learn that if the akav ha'oines is if the man is ma'ake from marrying her because of an oines, so then he's potter from feeding her. And the Indian gittin ain't tainus oines muelas, but if you're given a get, it doesn't work. Im nas and get leishta, if he gives a get to his wife, almanas, if you have some type of tanai. Im lo abba al zaman ploni. I don't going to come until ploni's man. It will be a get, and he is nanas, and then something happens, and therefore he's not able to get there. Velo ba hooray ze get oinasayisi. So you say I am going to be there. Let's say for 30 days. This will be your get. He gives the get to on condition if I don't return for 30 days. So then he doesn't return for 30 days, but he tried to return for 30 days, but his car broke down. He went into the past and he couldn't get back to the future, so therefore he couldn't fulfill the get. Since he couldn't fulfill the get, but he didn't want to fulfill the get. So he wanted the get not to fill. So it says Eino yachol omer oines hitis. The oines, there is no oines begitten. Ein oines begitten. So the tainus oines doesn't help to makayim tanai in your gitten. Now, well, this is really a question for them for next week, but what would you think if you said, I will come back for 30 days, and then you don't make it, but you tried to make it, you had your ticket booked, but the flight was cancelled. So would you think it is a good get or it's not a good get? You didn't fulfill your tanai to chal the get, but it wasn't your fault. You tried to fulfill the tanai to... Almanas, I don't come. So therefore he's trying to bottle the get. But the get wasn't bottled because he didn't come. Do you think that should be a bottle or shouldn't be a bottle because of oinus? So you got to have a starting point, an idea of what the pashtus is. So Alma kasavar ein oinus begitten, ein tainus oinus begitten, as Rashi has explained in the previous. V'lekameimafarish time, and later we will explain the reason. So seemingly, according to Rashi, that the pashtus is that there should be a oinus begitten, because ein oinus begitten, and later we're going to explain the reason. Well, if the pashtus is that there's ein oinus begitten, then I wouldn't need to explain the reason. So the fact that Rashi has to tell us that the reason will be told us later, so therefore we see the pashtus is that there should be oinus and gitten. Mana lei lerava ha. So the Gemarra asked the question. So since the Gemarra is asking the question, therefore it must be that the pashtus is that there is oinus begitten. So again, Rashi's on the previous part of Rava, but he understands, just like he's with the Gemarra, that there should be oinus begitten, and the fact that there isn't oinus begitten is a bit of a problem. So the Gemarra asks, "Mana leil Rava ha," because I would say there is oinus begitten. So how can he say there's no oinus begitten? Ilaim, if you want to say mehaditnan, from what it says in the Mishnah. Now these Mishnahs, they're in Gittin, and it's not clear what the Gemarra is saying. You have to really look up the Mishnahs. But hooray, ze gitech im lo bati mekan v'ad shnayim asar chodesh. So this is your get if I don't come. This is a bit like what Rashi was saying. So a get if I don't come. Mikan is an important word here, which we'll get back to. Mikan is from achshav, so from now until 12 months. And then he dies, b'tok shnayim asar chodesh, but he dies in those 12 months. Ain't no get, it's not a get. So therefore, is that an oinus begitten or it's not an oinus begitten? So this your get if I don't come. And he didn't come, but he didn't come because he died. There, it's ain't no get, it's not a get. So there seemingly that this is a good proof that it's not a get, so therefore there should be oinus begitten. Is this your get if I don't come? He didn't come, but it's not a get. So is that an oinus? So therefore you have there's no tinus of oinus. You can't say, well, it's not my fault because it's mace. So mesu de eno get. Hachala hareze get. So Rashi, mishum de ein get la'achar misa. So mesu de eno get, because there's no get. After someone dies, there's no get. Now, why is there no get achar misa? Seemingly, the Pashtus would.
Good.
Yeah, but why is there no get? Pashtus says is that the
Yavama.
Huh?
Because the Yavama, because then she's
but why is there no get after Misa? Simple pshat would be that since he's dead, there's no marriage anymore. You can't give a get when there's no marriage. A woman goes free in two ways: that she gets a get or the guy dies. So when the guy's dead, there should be no get after Misa because he's dead. Therefore, there's no marriage to dissolve anymore. Aval mishum oines achrina lo mafkia gita. But from another oines, it doesn't flip out the get. Alma ein oines begitin. De isal kadaicha chala nami eino get nis di chala v'kol sheken meish ein oines gadol mizeh. So we have a simple case of say here we have that mace is not a get. Therefore, if you're sick, it is a get. So therefore, you didn't come because you were sick. So therefore, the only reason you didn't come is because you were sick, and therefore your oinus from coming, and that oinus from coming allows you to fulfill your tanai of the get. Because if you say, I don't come, so I tried to come, but I was sick, that's called me coming. So therefore, I can be medayek that being sick, it is a get, because if the Mishnah is coming to teach me that sickness is not a get, just like mace, so just teach me sickness, and then I will know mace, because kol shekain mace. So Toysa speaks this out as well. Mace hu de eno get, de ein get lachar misa. Ha'achala hareze get. It's a get if you're sick. De ichala nami eno get. If it's a nami by chala, by getting sick. V'taima dahaka de eno get mishum oines. And the reason here by mace it's not a get because mace is oines. Imkain lishmin and chala just teaches sick. Because when I have the oines of chala, to have a oines muat, it's a small level of oines is chala. Because mace is v'kol shekain mace. Obviously, mace is a much bigger level of oines. It's like that sketch on Monty Python with the dead parrot. No, he's just resting. That when you're dead, the dead is a huge oines, whereas being sick is a small oines. Dahashta akate lo asakadaita de b'meisika lememor nichale de lotipo kama yibom. So Toysis is bringing a coming preview of that. There's a good terrace to what Toysis is saying, but at this point we don't have that's not sakadai. We don't have that idea in the Gemarra at this point, and therefore we have a simple. It's mace davka, and therefore chala there is a get because I would just learn chala and kol shekain mace, and therefore since I taught mace, it's mace davka not chala. So therefore it's mace who de eno get ha chala hareze get. So mace is not a get. So if the guy dies and doesn't come, that's called he didn't come. But if he got sick and didn't come, that's called he came. So therefore, since he didn't come because he was oines, therefore we see this yesh oines. We see this we see there is ein oines begitten. You can't taina. The oines, the fact that he didn't come, doesn't stop the get from falling. Maybe you'll say, I'll reject this and say that the chal, when the person gets sick, it also is not a get. And therefore you can't taina oines. And the whole point of what the Mishnah is coming to teach means there ain't get achar misa. So Rashi, he gufa kamash malan kloimer hi detana mace lav lediyuka delay Tanya Tanya lemida kachala. So the whole point of we teaching mace is not to teach me but sickness it is a guess, because the whole point of teaching mace is to teach me mace itself. Eila lashmin and he gufa the ain't guess lachar misa, that there's no get after someone dies, and even without any tanai at all. For example, someone says to his wife, that this is a get after the guy dies. It's not a get. Lepotro mena yibum. It's not a get that it will potter him from the yibum. So Rashi here brings in the idea of being poiter from yibum. Why does he say to be poiter from yibum? It's in order to teach that that's the nafkamina as to whether you get the get or not. Because who cares whether somebody gets a get? Because the guy's dead and therefore she's not married. So therefore the get chals before he dies, the get chals after he dies. It doesn't matter. There's no get achar misa. So she's waiting there, and here's my get. If I die, so then who cares? She's free to go anyway once the guy dies. There's no marriage left. So Rashi tells you nafkamina is the potter from yibum. So ze get gitach in mitzai. This the get. Here's your get if I die. That's the next case. So had kiguf kemashman de'en ges la'achar misa, that if you say that there's no get la'achar misa, so we said we can't learn that because ain't get la'achar misa ha tani elay reisha. So this idea of ain't get la'achar misa, we've already taught it in the reisha. Now this reisha is about 5 mishras beforehand. It's about 5 daf before. If you go into the parak in Gittin, what we've had, what they're going to call the seifa, is towards the end of the parak, and the reisha, this mishnah here, is at the beginning of the parak, and they're really nothing to do with each other. Harei ze gitech in meisei, harei ze gitech mecholizeh, harei ze gitech la'achar misa lo amar klum. So this is that we're learning that there's no get la'achar misa. So ze gitech in meiti shechiv meira shekasav get le'ishtay. So a guy shechiv meira is somebody on his deathbed, so he's about to die, and he writes a get to his wife. Be'echad mena lashonis halalo. One of these lashonis. Ze gitech in misei or ze gitech mechulizeh. Misha yispoch chulizeh. Mashma v'hu meis mayotze chuli. Now, here Rashi quotes only 2 of the cases. In our Mishnah here, we have 3 cases. In Meisi, if I die, Mechuli Zeh, from this sickness, La'achar Misa, after death. There's 3 cases in the Mishnah. Rashi says that in Meisi or Zeh Mechuli Zeh. So Rashi only quotes 2 of them. What happened to the 3rd case? Misha Yisvok Chuli Zeh, when this sickness stops, Mashma v'hu meis mayose chuli, that he died from that sickness, lo amar klum. Therefore, he doesn't. What he says doesn't help. Sheharei misha pasuk eino b'chaim ve'eino yechol legaresh. That when he stops the sickness, he's not alive, and since he's dead, eino yechol legaresh, he's not able to divorce her. Now here, Rashi is not giving the correct answer here. It should be, what does it mean he's not able to divorce her? He's not able to divorce her. Is that why ain't get lachar misa? Because the guy's dead and a dead person isn't able to do gerushin. Seemingly, according to this Rashi, that if he gave a get to a shliach to give after he dies, then since the shaliach is able to divorce, because he's able to give the get, so therefore there should be a chalas of the kedusha nachar misa. And the simple pushat of ain't get lachar misa should apply. Why is Rashi not bring that one, which is that ain't get lachar misa, meaning that once he's dead there's no divorce anymore to dissolve. But Rashi says that he's not able, since the guy's dead, he can't do mitzvahs, he can't do actions, he's dead, and he can't do divorce. Now, Rashi in Gittin says that, again, like the Posh Prashad, is that since he's dead, there's no divorce, there's no marriage to dissolve. There are nafkaminas in this. Some say that even if there's no dissolvement, like in a case of a yibum, that there's not a complete dissolvement because there's still a connection between her and his brother. So then the idea of ein get lachar misa doesn't apply there, and then you need this second svar of ein yachol legaresh. But people argue on that point. But this is just a ha'ara on the Rashi that l'chayra this isn't the correct reason. Ein yachol legaresh because he's dead, because he can just use the shliach, but that's not how it has that. But l'chayra Rashi needs both terutzim, but here he only brings this teretz. So Tosfos in the Dilma, this is how we rebuke. Tosfos just says Mesu de Eino get, and then he refutes. He refutes himself. Sorry, the Gemarra refutes this and says maybe that sek is also a get. So then Tosfos says there is a tainus oinus, and that you say that it should teach sickness and kol shekain meis. That's what Tosfos says up here. They should take oinus muad for kol shekain meis. That's what we're teaching. Hadekatani meis hakamash malan to ein get l'achar misa. That which we taught meis. This is what we're teaching, that there's no get after death. The atala shmina and travaihu. So now we actually have both of what we're teaching here. One is that there is an oinus, and the second, the ein get l'achar misa. We have two chedushim, and Tosfos is going to say why we have to have the two chedushim. To yesh oines, great. If we're only teaching that there's a oines begitin, atala shmin, and that's what the Mishnah is coming to teach us. Aval yesh get lachar misa have le minchat chala ve'ein ve'i. He should have just taught sickness. If we're not teaching ein get lachar misa, we're just teaching there's no oines or yesh oines begitin. Then just say if the guy gets sick, the ein get la'achar misa greda hu boy lashmin. If we're only teaching achar misa, lo havi le'leminka hareze gitechem lo basi. It should not have taught that this is your get if I don't come. Sha'isa tanai, because he's making a tanai in the case of our Mishnah. So what should he have said? Eila hareze gitech la'achar misa. If you're just coming to teach me misa, just teach me straight. Here's your get achar misa. Don't teach me this idea of hareze gitechem lo basi. What's the whole point of having in lo basi? That's to teach oines. So the lo basi teaches oines and meis teaches meis, and therefore we have both taught in the same Mishnah. So that's how the Gemarra Dilma the Dilma lolam emelacha chala nami eno get the hagufa kamash malan. So this is the teretz of the Gemarra. That why do we have both of them? Ein get v'hi gufa kamash malan de ein get l'achar misa. So Rashi Dilma had to itzrach seifa. So the seifa is the case of im lo basi. If I don't come, that's what we had at the beginning. So that which I need that case im lo basi lafoki medrabotenu. So v'dilma la'olam emelacha chala nami eno get. So all these cases of mace, he gufa kamash malan to ein get lachar misa. So ein get. Sorry, la'olam emelacha chala nami. Yeah, that's what the Tosfos is going on. So this is the Tosfos here, which we just did. So you have a look at the end of Tosfos here. Akati lo asakadaita de b'meis ikala meimor nichale de lo tipul kamei yibu. So this is the teretz which he brings in up here, which explains why we can't learn like this diuk. But in this Gemarra, in the Havamina, we're learning with this diuk. But then we come up with this idea, or we come up with this svara of that we're actually teaching two things. That's the difference between these two Tosfos. So hareze gitech im meisi michuli ze la'achar misa. So la'achar misa have a taima dakuluhu. So again, if we have a look, we said that there's three cases here. Im meisi hareze gitech im meisi is one, michuli ze is two. La'achar misa is the third one. So Tosfos is saying, he's explaining, just like Rashi here, la'achar misa have a taima dakuluhu. So that this achar misa is the reason of the first two. Hereze gitech imesi. That is not a get. Why? Because that is lacher misa. The mashmayas of the get. So after the guy dies, then she'll get the get. So that's a get of acher misa. Hereze get michulizeh. After this sickness that he dies from, that's not a get because it's acher misa. These are the reasons of the first two. So there's actually only two reasons here. So the words of Lacher Misa, this third case, is the time of the Kuluhu. It's not a third case, it's the reason of all of them. Como atem, velo apipochet, velo shoiftim, velo arisin, velo kol hatoyrim es she'ena shelo. So the case in Gittin, this is a case of where someone's coming to be taking truma, that there's a atem, that the Kuluhu have a mishum toyrim es she'ena shelo. So the whole reason that it has to be atem, it's you, and not anyone else, it's all because it's Eino Shalo. And over there it says that Eino Shalo. But that Eino Shalo is not another case, it's the reason for all the cases listed. So we have the cases listed here. Apotropos is not Truma, Shoitim is not Truma, Arisin is not Truma, and everyone who's Torah met Eino Shalo. So this, Kol HaTorah She'eino Shalo, is the reason for all of them. So it could have just said a kol term she'ena shalo, but it's given some cases. The potropos is not his, the shoitum is not his, the arisin is not his, so therefore it doesn't chal. The kol who have misham toirim esena shalo. The whole list is for the last case. So that's just like us that we have this list, but the list is like the reason. The last case is the reason for the first two. Vimtema hahi mishnah gufa amai starech. So this mishnah bechla, what do I need it for? Hatana behedya perikama begittin. We say begittin to ain't get lacher misa. So we're learning here that this mishnah is teaching us to ain't get lacher misa, but I have a mishnah in gittin that's teaching me to ain't get lacher misa. Ditana omer tunu get leishti lo yitnu lacher misa. So if he gives this get to my wife, he gives it to a shaliach. There's no get lacher misa. Ubeperikama the gittin pirshenu. In the first parak of gittin, Toysis explains it. Bekitzer, the idea of the shaliach is that I also need a case of ain't get lacher misa for a shaliach, which is like the Rashi to be lafuke. This idea of Rashi ve'en yochol legaresh. If that was the reason, so therefore if I give my get to a shaliach, then it would chal. So therefore I need the Mishnah in Gittin as well in order to teach me that won't chal. But again, Rashi, I'm not saying Rashi holds of this, because Rashi elsewhere does say that since he's dead, there's no marriage to dissolve, and therefore there's no get lacher misa. So, the back in the Gemarra, the higufa kamash malan. So emalacha. So hatan lereisha to ain't get lacher misa. Lo amar klum. Dilma. So we're saying Dilma lafuke midrabosenu. So here we have. So there's the case of the Reisha. So the answer of the Gemarra is one of the cases, anyways, to be lafuke midrabosenu. Now at this point, I don't know who Rabosenu is, and it's a strange lashon of the Gemarra to use. Why don't you say lafuke? Rabbi Yehuda, lafuke Rabbi Shimon, whatever the shita is. What is this that coming to lafuke midrabosenu? And which case of the Gemarra is coming to lafuke? Is the Reisha coming to lafuke, or is the Seifa coming to lafuke? So Rashi comes up hada ishrach Seifa imlo bati. So he speaks out which Mishnah? The Mishnah of imlo bati is coming to lafuke midrabosenu. Lafuke midrabosenu itzarich. The pligi elev amrei de ein get lacher misa hu de kevin de kov de kasov beged zman kasuvu hu b'chiach shekach amar la. So once you have the zman in the get, there's two ways to understand what's happening with this zman and a tanai. So you have a imlo bati mikan at shloshim yom. So mikan is from now until 30 days, until 12 months. So when do I want the get techal. I want it to get techal on the date that's in it, or I want it techal when the Tanai is fulfilled in 12 months' time. So the pashas would be, according to the Rabbanan, that you want the Tanai to be fulfilled. Since you want the Tanai to be fulfilled, that can only happen in 12 months' time. If the guy dies within the 12 months, he didn't fulfill the Tanai, and therefore there's no get. But according to Mrabotenu, that since that there is a Zman written in the get, so then, since I wrote the time, I want it to fall at the time. It's like a me'achshav. Putting the time in the get means me'achshav. And therefore, even though that there's a tanai, it's like the tanai is lemafreya. So therefore, it will go back to the time that I have in the get. And the Rabbanan say, no, it'll go to the time when you fulfill the tanai. If there's no tanai, it's being fulfilled. If he's dead at the fulfillment of the tanai, so therefore, it didn't chal. So that's the maklokas. And Mrabotenu, he argues. So the pligile v'amrin de ein get lacher misa who the kaven dechtov get zman, since the zman's in the get, it's written, it proves shekach omarla. That's what he's saying to her. Im lo bati leoiso zmani he get lemafreya. So Rashi adds, he says here lemafreya. It'll go back to the time mihayom, the time that I make the tanai, the time that I put into the get. So since there's a get lemafreya, before he dies, he was alive on that day. So therefore, it's a good get. If you say Beferush, the Rabbanan will agree. If you say Beferush Lemafreya, it's a good get. But he didn't say Lemafreya, just put the Zman in the get. So De'ilo Mishum Gita Ad Shnai Masar Chodesh Lama Ketev Yom Kesiva Haget B'toichoi Lechtovim Lo Bati LeRosh Chodesh Ploni Yeget. So just say, if I don't come until Rosh Chodesh, why is he putting the date B'chlal in the get? So how's Rashi learning the case? He's saying that the get is from today for 12 months. So if he just wants that it should fall when I fulfill the tonight. When is 12 months? Well, let's say now is coming to the end of ER. So I'll say if I don't come from Rosh Chodesh Sivan. So if I don't come to Rosh Chodesh Sivan or Rosh Chodesh ER, so Rosh Chodesh ER will be 12 months away. So just say lechtov im lo bati Rosh Chodesh Iyar ploni. So therefore, then you'll get a get. So therefore, the fact that he's putting the date in, that's how we could say it. If he's not makbid on the date, being lemafreya. So that since he's putting the date in, so im lo bati leotos mani he get lemafreya mi hayom. Because if it's not because I want the get to be chal lemafreya, so why did I write the day? So just say until next Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and then it'll be good. So therefore I'm coming, so therefore this case is specifically the Seifa of Im Lobati, specifically coming to say, not like Mrabotenu, because Mrabotenu will say that is a good get. That since there's a date in the get, so therefore it will, since there's a there's a date in the get, so therefore it will chal at that date. So we'll see the case. Titania, the Mrabotenu Hetiro linase. So in this case, where you have the get, imlobati, with the date, then he allows her to marry because there's a chalas of the get. At this point, there's a simple question. Why is Mrabotenu allowing her to marry? Because there's oinus begitten. He didn't come. He never came. So therefore, surely there's an oinus begitten. And why can't Mrabotenu be the makor for Rava? Okay, so Tosfos. Dilma lafoke mi Mrabotenu. Aval mehahi dereisha lo shma'inen lafoke mi Mrabotenu. So Tosfos is asking, and this is a simple question. We've said that Imlo Basi is coming to lafoke mi Mrabotenu, but why can't we just learn from the Reisha, Hareza gitech imesi, Hareza gitech mechuliza, Hareza gitech lacher misa, lo amar klum. Why can't we learn Mrabotenu there? Why don't we say, well, since that there's a date in the get, and therefore Mrabotenu will be choylek on there, and therefore in get lacher misa, lo amar klum. So therefore, I know from the Reisha already, not like Mrabotenu. Why do I need to teach it again with this Imlo Basi stuff? So just learn it from the Reisha. So the Reisha lo shmin lafuk Mrabotenu, de'ikelam okma b'she'en kosov zman b'shtar. because there's no zman in the star. So this is a nice okimta of Tosfos. He says in the Reisha there's no zman in the star, but in the Imlobati there is a zman in the star. So I'll ask the question: how does Tosfos know in the case? So we have Harei zegitechem meisi, Harei zegitechem michulizeh. So he says, oh yeah, there mustn't be a zman in the Gemarra in the get. That's why we don't learn from. We can't learn Rebbeinu from there. But I'll say also, I'll say there's no date in that get either. So I can't learn from Rebbeinu there. How does Tosfos know that in this get there is a zman, and that get there isn't a zman? Simple question from Tosfos, no? Tosfos is making a chiluk. He's saying that we can't learn Rebbeinu from the Reisha, because in the Reisha there's no zman in that get. Aye, but the Mikan v'yesh Shnayim Esar Chodesh, there is a zman in that get. How does he know there's a zman in this get? Maybe there's also no zman in this get. So again, the Chayre said that this word Mikan is a key word here. That Mikan means from now. So I need to know when now is. Because if I don't know when now is, so then I won't know when the 12 months are up. From now until 12 months. This is what it says here. From now till 12 months. So I need to know, what if he comes tomorrow? If he doesn't put a date, if he doesn't put the date in the get and he comes tomorrow, is it a get? It has to be. Get im lobati. So he bottles the get by coming tomorrow. But if he can't, I need to know when tomorrow starts. I need to know when today is in order for this get to work at all. So therefore, there has to be, because of this word mikan, there has to be a get. There has to be a date in that get. However, Tosfos is now saying that Tosfos says if there was a proper date in this get, then for sure it would be you could learn Mrabotenu from this Mishnah. However, since the Gemarra is saying we don't, it must be that there's no date in this Mishnah. I can say that without having a date. I don't know when today is. You just know the guy's sick, or here's the get if the guy dies. So therefore, the mace you don't need to know today's date. But for the first case, for the other case, we do. So therefore, for sure that there's a zman in the case of in lobasi, and therefore for sure Rebbeinu disagrees on there. However, in the first case, we're not so sure. So Tosfos has a question on this, because we say in Gittin that there are 3 Gittin or posel, and one of the 3 posel gets it doesn't have zman. So how can the Gemarra, the Mishnah, be talking about a get that doesn't have zman in it? If it doesn't have zman, it's a posel get. So Tosfos said that's okay. Hamrin and im nises have lad kosher. So b'di'eved, if the get doesn't have zman in it, b'di'eved it's a good get. So even though lechatchila don't give a get like this, b'di'eved it's good. And therefore it's not a posel get, it's a kosher get b'di'eved. Umishom de'ein get l'achar misa, ketani hacha lo amar klum. Afilo nises. So here we're saying that now we've got a get that doesn't have the time in it, and therefore it should be a good get b'di'eved. So why is our Mishnah? But our Mishnah says it's eino get even b'di'eved l'achar misa. Haka lo amar klom afilo nises. So therefore, by ein get la'achar misa is a b'di'eved. Even b'di'eved, it's no good. However, with a get with zman b'di'eved, it is good. So then Tosfos gives a second case, a second reason that really b'kotov. It has the zman in the get. It's only that he has the week or the year or the month. The Shavuot will be the 7 day, the 7 year, which Shemitah we're in, or the year or the month. It says in the second parak, the kasav ve'ein zmanu mochiach alav inami b'meuchar. So inami is the next teretz. So this teretz that he wrote the zman. He just didn't write the zman specifically which day it was. He wrote the month or he wrote the year. So that's called a zman. So that's good enough for that get. However, it's not good enough to for Mrabotenu to be moide. The ein zman is mochiach lav inami b'meuchar. So meuchar is that the date in the get is after when he wrote it. So let's say he wrote it on day 1 and says if I die from this sickness, and the date is on day 30, and he died on day 15. So therefore, even the date on day 30, because that's a mu'char get, it's not going to work for the get, because once he gets to day 30, he already died on day 13, and therefore it's just a normal get of achar misa. So therefore, if it's a mu'char get, there has a date in it, but Rabbeinu can't learn that, it can't be lafoke Rabbeinu from that get. However, again, our case of mikan can't be a case of mu'char, can't be a case where you put just a random month or a year. It has to be a specific day, because if I come tomorrow, it has to mevatel the get, and it can't be a time where I didn't have the get. So that's Tosis explaining why I can't be lafoke Rabbeinu from the Reisha. So in the Ramban, ואני אומר רבי יוסי עדיפא מרבותינו, דאילו רבי יוסי אפילו בלאחר מיסה, איסלה. So Rabbi Yossi holds even after Misa he has it. V'Rabbeinu lislahu heichet detali b'Misa. But when the Rabbeinu say that it is that they say that the get will chal when I die. So what we're saying here by Rabbi Yossi is saying, we haven't really seen him yet in the Gemarra, but Rabbi Yossi is the shita that Rabbeinu was going like, that Rabbeinu was saying that if you have a get if you have a date in the get, it'll go lemafreya. And then for Rabbi Yossi, even if he dies, it'll go lemafreya. Because again, if you say me'achshav after I die, it's a good get. So Rabbi Yossi will hold that way with the date. When the date's in it, even if he dies, so you go back. But Rabbeinu don't have. Well, when he gives the tanai b'misa, not just the me'achshav after, but when he says that if I die, this will be a good guess, that's no good. Why? Misham the geli daisa. There's a giloi of his das. He doesn't want the chalas of the get while he's alive. Since he says that after I die, I want the get to chal, then when I'm alive, I don't want it to chal. That's not just a simple case of where you're having the date going back lemafreya. He's saying now that there's a difference between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbeinu, when that Rabbi Yossi's good, the guy dies, and then you go after the Zman. But Rabbi Seinu is a whole different shita. His shita is that once you say, I want it to get to chal after I die, even the date on it for sure doesn't go lemafreya. Because I'm saying beferush that I don't want it to chal while I'm alive, because I want it to chal when I'm dead. So therefore, there's no V'lo avid eila ki chechid lo tipol kama yibum, and therefore the whole point of the get is only because of yibum. Ad amar mi'achshav beferush. That's only. But if he says mi'achshav beferush, he says specifically from now, so then it would go back, and therefore putting the date in is not enough in order to go lemafreya. Daha it may see mashma bela'achar misa. If he says if I die it's after misa, call emas. The lo amar le mi'achshav beferush. He has to say mi'achshav beferush. So again, the whole kind of savara of the date working is that the date means mi'achshav mehayom. When I put the date in the get, it means mehayom. But if he says from this sickness or after he dies, so therefore it means after he dies, then it's the mashmos of the date mi'achshav isn't good enough. Therefore you'll say that the star doesn't help. You'll say that once you don't say misa in the get itself, so therefore it will work. So now the Ramban has a simple chiluk in Rebbeinu, not like Tosfos. The chiluk of the Ramban is that if you say beferush, it's about death, so therefore putting the date in is not an idea of me'achshav. You have to say me'achshav beferush, because really what you're saying by saying after the death is I don't want it while I'm alive, and therefore the date doesn't mean me'achshav. But if it's just stam, I'm not. If I don't come in 30 days or from now until 12 months, so therefore the date there is like me'achshav, and therefore that will work. So therefore, according to the Ramban, I can't learn from the Reisha. Because the Reisha, I don't need to come up with ukimtas. It's muchrach me'alav. It's muchrach in itself that the case of the Reisha I can't learn Rebbeinu, because Rabbi Yossi might agree that, but Rebbeinu will say that it's not a good get, and therefore maybe I'll think the Tana holds like Rebbeinu, and therefore I need the second Mishnah in order to be lafoke mi Rebbeinu. But according to Tosfos, he's making these funky ukimtas in the ratio, which aren't necessarily mukhrach, because maybe the get has a date, and Ramban seems to be learning in the ratio it does have a date in it, because he said the Rebbe Yossi lacher misa islay, so that it really in the ratio Rebbe Yossi will be good. It has a date in it and all's good, and Tosfos needs three, 4 reasons why the ratio is no good for Rabbeinu. So Tosfos and Ramban are really answering the same question. However, the Ramban is more cautious, and Tosfos is struggling with the Akimtas in order to say why we don't just learn Rabbeinu from the ratio. So now I'm reading man Rabbeinu. Who is this Rabbeinu guy? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Bi Dina Desharu Mishcha. Now this is a very strange thing to say. Like, who is Rabbeinu? And that's Svari like Rabbi Yossi. So just say man Rabbeinu, Rabbi Yossi. I only say why just say Rabbi Yossi in the first place? So Rabbeinu it's just a Svari like Rabbi Yossi. He holds like Rabbi Yossi. So this is again we saw in the Ramban that there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yossi, saying Rabbi Yossi is more makel than then Rabbeinu. Rabbeinu is, Shmuel says, it's the based in that mattered oil, and they hold like Rabbi Yossi, who says that Zmano Shel Shtar Mochiach Alav. This is the end of that piece. But what's going on here? Why is this so? I find this very confusing. Laefukei mid Rabbeinu. And then we say Rabbeinu allowed them to marry. Who is this Rabbeinu? Oh, it's the based in that allowed Mishcha. Like, what kind of teretz is that? And then it holds like Rabbi Yossi says, "Manishtar Mechiach Alav." So why are we not just being moitzi me? Why are we not being moitzi from Rabbi Yossi? So there, the Ramban answered that because we can be moitzi from Rabbi Yossi in the Reisha. So we need the Sefer to be moitzi from Rabbeinu. But what's this whole song and dance about Mishcha? Rabbi Yossi. So Rashi Yitur li nase belo chalitza lahahi de'im lo basi. So now here we have Yitur li nase belo chalitza. Why would she need chalitza? So says Rashi that the whole point of this marriage is the whole point of the get is for yibum, and therefore Yitur li nase, it's a good get, and you don't need chalitza. Lahahi de'im lo basi. So that's all the case of Imlo Basi, that you don't, that they got out of the whole point of Yibum. So again, but Lo Chalitza, because he's going on Yibum. So we asked this before, what's the case, what's going on here in the Yibum? So here's the Rishash. So Rashi, so this is the Rishash, the Rashi earlier, the Havamina Eino Ger. V'emein ein lo banim, Kain Tzarech Loimer, it's ein lo, it's ein la in the Girsa. But nafkamina nami lina say lekohen. So now Rashi's saying that the only difference we have is if the woman's going to fall to be if the woman is going to fall to be in Yibum or not. If she's going to be in Yibum, or she can just marry anyone without Chalitza. That's what Rashi is saying there. Obviously, without Chalitza or Yibum. Mutter lina say means that there's no. She doesn't have to marry the Yibum for sure, because here in the Rashi here when he says below Chalitza, if there's no Yibum, if there is a Yibum. Why chalitza? Maybe she has to marry the yibum. It's like usually or yibum or chalitza. But since she's mutter to marry to the shuk, even without chalitza, so that there's nothing to do with the yibum at all. Because if it was a yibum, then she couldn't marry anybody. She'd have to face her yibum and either get the yibum or get the chalitza. But here, there's certain cases. Let's say machmir de rabbanan or whatever it is. Get a chalitza. You're not allowed to marry. But here, so therefore the nafkamina is with yibum, but there's another nafkamina, because if she gets a get before she dies, then therefore she's a divorcee. And if she gets a get after she dies, so then she's a widow, because in get lachramisa. And a widow is allowed to marry a Kohen, whereas a divorcee isn't. So therefore we have another nafkamina nami lihina se lekohen. Ubezeh yesh loymar had the kamar v'hi gufa kamash malan. So this we say later in the Gemarra, he gufa kamash malan she'ein get la achar misa. Denira de afilu intin selorma yesh tainis oines begitten. So even according to, because again Rav is ein oines begitten, but maybe we can find a case of yesh oines begitten, because at the moment the Gemarra is kind of holding of yesh oines begitten, because we haven't found a source for Rava. So even if you want to say that there is oines begitten, that she becomes possible to the kahuna because of this din called reich get. Ein get la'achar misa af reich get ein bo. If it's just a stam get of where the guy gives his wife and he says, and he says to her, here's a get after I die, ain't get la'achar misa. Since it ain't get la'achar misa, she's a widow. She's not a divorcee. So back up here, this is the case of when he made it tonight. It's only nifla kahuna mishum reich get. It's only when he didn't make a tanai at all we say that she's not possible because of reich get. But since there is a tanai in our case, im lo basi, the case of im lo basi, there is a tanai. Once you have a tanai, whether it's fulfilled or whether it wasn't fulfilled, then there's a reich get there. So once you have that reich get, she's possible for the kahuna. Uvezeh yesh lemer hata kamar vehi gufa kamash malan. He gufa kamash malan de in get lachar misa. Even reich get in bo. Here he's heard. Here the Rashash is being medayik in the Gemarra that he gufa kamash malan. Gufa kamash malan ain't get lachar misa at all. There's not even reich get achar misa ain't get lachar misa, because that's what the Reisha. Because that's what the Reisha is teaching. Our case of imlo basi. That is a case of a tanai, and therefore there is a reich get, and therefore you can't marry there's no nafkamina of the kohen. Therefore the only nafkamina is the yibum, and that's why Rashi brings the case of the yibum, because there's no case, because there's a reich get here, and only in the case of misa was the Rashash saying that there could be a nafkamina of the Kohen, based in of mishcha, of oil. So dilma laafukei Medrabotenu is the chas from Sopher. Ratza leimer demat nisan deim mesai matzi iri belozman. So laafukei Medrabotenu haksha Ramban. So Ramban asked the question. We see from Mrabotenu, so therefore we find our case for Rava. Why, if there is an oines in Gittin, then why are you allowed to get married? Nahi the zman u'mechiach, even though that the zman is moichich on it, v'havika me'achshav, it's like he said me'achshav mikom makom yesh oines. There is an oines. Ela al kain ein oines, therefore we have to say there's no oines. The to efshor de ma'aseh Medrabotenu have b'misha hitna afilu isaled oines. That he made a tanai. But the terutzim is that maybe that the ma'aseh Medrabotenu was where he davka made it tanai ayin sham. Venerally, it appears to me that because of this is why the Simon Shash man Medrabotenu based in the Shari Mashcha. Why is Rashash saying this weird lashon of who is Medrabotenu? It's the based in that is matir oil. The hachriach to prove the al korcha lefi hahavamina she'ein hachriach mishom mokum she'ein oines begitten. That for sure that it is not because of ein oines begitten. Al kein tzrich and loimer de uvda didihu have b'mi shehitna al kol unsa de mitzled. That we have to say the uvda of their matter is for someone who makes the tana on any oines. It has to be tzrich and loimer that the uvda, the case, our case in the Mishnah, is where he made a tanai in the guess of any oines that can possibly happen. It has to be that case. Why does it have to be that case? Because we're proving in it. That's why we can't learn this like Rabbah. Because we're saying that any oines that happens, then it's going to be a get. So the guy says, if I don't come, then it's going to be your get. However, if any oinus happens that forces me not to come, it's going to be a get. And that has to be the case. Then if that's not true, then Mrabotenu has two kulas. That's his one kula, that even though he didn't say me'achshav, that the zman of the get is like he said me'achshav. And the second kula is ein onis bikitin. We have a second kula that ein onis bikitin, that even though he was oinus, the gitin still chals. The get still chals, even though he was oinus from fulfilling his tanai. So that the oinus doesn't stop your taina. Now, who cares if there's two kulas? Who cares about that? So let them have two kulas. The in if you add them both together, another kula, the shari mishcha. So now we have two kulas, and now we have a third kula. The third kula is that they mattered the oil. So again, the idea of the mattering the oil is that there was a takana that you're not allowed to have goy oil. Just like you can't have goy wine and goy butter and milk, you can't have goy oil. And they allowed goy oil because people weren't holding by the din. And then since you can't have a takana that people aren't going to hold by, so then they bottled the takana and then you could have goy oil. So they were the based in that were matter oil. Havele. So now we have three kulas. The mattered oil, zmanu shall get mochiach. They're both for sure. Then we have the second one, this third one, ein oines begitin, which is seemingly the third kula of this based in. If they had all those three, havele beidina deshari, they would be a based in that matters things. The ayin shamba mesechles avodah zarah demishum hachi lo hitiru pas. So you have to have a look there in mesechles avodah zarah. That because of this, meaning that to matter three things, and to be that if you matter three things, you're going to be called a basin that matters everything. And once you're this like basin that matters everything, people don't really listen to your psaks anymore. And this is the reason that they didn't matter pas akum, in order that they wouldn't be called a based in that shara ayin sham hativ. So you had basically that based in already had they would have two kulas. If they had this third kula of allowing pas, then they would be this based in that matters. They didn't want to do that, therefore they wouldn't allow pas. So therefore our case must be that they don't matter oines begitin, because otherwise they would be a based in that would be kula. They would be mattering all these things. Al korcha myra behisna al kol oinsim velike lo hechiach elechad dina dezmanu mochiach, and therefore we can only be forced to have only one din. So the way that the Chassan Sofer is learning this, the Gemarra is like this. So dilma lafoki midrabotenu. So maybe this whole case of Imlo Basi is coming like Mrabotenu, because we learn that Mrabotenu is satirali naseh. So the Mrabotenu allows him to marry, and that has to be the case of that the Zaman is Mochiach alav, because once he says Mikan add 12 months, so therefore the Zaman of Mikan is Mochiach miachshav, and therefore that's why they're married, they're allowed to be naseh. But there's nothing to do with Oines, it's not like Rava at all, it's nothing to do with Oines. Why is this? Because who is Mrabotenu? Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel says it's the based din that is matir mishcha, that is a based din that matters the oil. So therefore we have the kula of Rabbi Yossi that says Mano Shel Star Mochiach. That's one kula. We have the second kula of that they sharu mishcha, that they allowed the oil. That's two kulas, and therefore there's no third kula of that they mattered the oines, and therefore Mrabotenu is not a source for Rava, and therefore Mrabotenu is this he's davka the guy who misharu mishcha in order to teach you that he's not going to be matter the oines, and therefore he's not going like Rava, and therefore the seifa davka is coming to be oike from Mrabotenu.